Okay, very good. This is Commissioner Peter Volk, Chair of the Traffic and Transportation Commission. I'm calling to order the Tuesday, June 22nd meeting of the City of Calabasas Traffic and Transportation Commission. In doing so, I'd like to do a roll call of the commissioners. Commissioner Sariano.
Here.
Commissioner Schechter.
Present.
Student Commissioner Yalda.
Here.
Commissioner Sperling Reich.
Here.
Let's see who is not with us this evening. Anna, can you identify the missing members, please?
Commissioner Huzane is not here. He's currently out of the country on vacation. So it would be 4 a.m.
Wow, well, that's a legitimate excuse. Thank you very much.
And the two other student commissioners are excused. They send us their email. We understand it's the beginning of the summer, so Tatiana's out vacation. And I believe you had it. Anna, did you have the email from Student Commissioner Gracie? I believe, yeah, she had a pre-arranged program, so it excuses acceptable. And she promised me she will talk to Nicholas and find out what's going on. So I think Nicholas is representing all the student commissioners.
Thank you very much. Jason, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Do we have a, well, I guess I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the
United
United States
of
of America
and to the republic
for which
for which
it
it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you. And are there any announcements or introductions by my fellow commissioners?
I do have a question. What does an announcement, you know, I've always been a little confused as to what the announcement actually consists of.
It would be, I don't know if there's a legal definition of it, but it strikes me as something, if you an announcement about a city activity, a community event, it could be an announcement about, well, if you have a topic that you'd like the commission to take up later, take up at a later meeting, we can do that. We can bring that to our meeting later on. But just let's say you were involved within a community organization that was having some type of non-partisan, self-serving kind of announcement.
Okay, so as far as topics for later, then I will hold off.
Okay, and I don't believe there are any introductions for today. Commissioner Schechter or Commissioner Sariano? Any announcements or introductions?
I do not.
Okay,
No,
very
thank
good.
you.
So we were provided with a packet, both hard print as well as digital. Prior to the meeting, there was an agenda included within there. I'd entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
I motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Sorry.
Any discussion? All those who approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. And then there were also included in our packet were meeting minutes from the February 23rd TTC meeting. Commissioner Sariano, are you inclined to offer up a motion of approval?
Yes, I would extend a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the matter? All those approving the minutes, please indicate so by please saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Moving up to our Sheriff's Department report is Detective Hulson here. I thought I saw him on the screen, but
I'm here.
Okay, very good. I didn't see you, but there
I
we go.
believe
That's
it's
better.
voice only.
Yeah, voice only. I don't have a camera.
Okay, very good. Dave, could you please present the Sheriff's Department report for the last month or so? Thank you.
Yeah, this is the one that I was given in the packet was for April. So I'll go over the April numbers if that's okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so the April numbers for the city of Calabasas, we had a total of 27 collisions. That's excluding private property, which we don't count in that stat. The year prior, we had 47, so we're down 20 total collisions, which is very good. No fatals. We had 11 injuries as opposed to 10 at the same period last year. So we're up 1 injury, but we're down on the non-injury collisions, which is listed as property collisions. Those are property damage only. We had 16 as of April, the end of April, and last year we had 37, so we're down 21. So we're down quite a few collisions. Private property, which, in the parking lots, generally non-injury collisions. We had 7 so far this year in April and 15 last year, so we're down. DUI collisions, none, both this time and last year. And DUI collisions with property damage, we have had none as of April. We had 4 the same period last year, so we're down 4 DUI collisions. We had last year, we had 0 pedestrians killed, and same with this year. Pedestrians injured, we had 1 last year, so we're down 1. We've had no pedestrian injuries as of April. Hit and runs, year to date in hit and runs, we've had 1. We had 10 last year, so we're down 9. Hit and run property only, it was no injuries for the one we had this year. We had 9 non-injury hit and runs last year, so we're down 8. We had 1 actually hit and run injury last year, but none this year, so we're -1 on the hit and run injuries. DUI arrests, we're down, but that should be coming back up again. Depends who's working in the city. But we had 13 as of April arrests, DUI arrests, 25 last year, so we're down 12. Hazardous sites, the ones that cause a point on your driving record. Total year to date for April, 460, last year, 434. So we're up a little bit. We're down quite a few non-hazardous sites, the fix-it tickets. We've written 150 as of April, 214 last year, so we're down about 64. Parking tickets, we had 210 last year, 255, so we're down 45, but we've taken it a little bit easy on the parking tickets during COVID because a lot more people are home, and we're taking it easy on some of that stuff, but we're going to be going back to normal pretty soon. So if you're parking in the street sweeping areas and things like that where you weren't getting tickets, probably in the next month or so, we're going to be starting that up again. We are starting to enforce the 72-hour, if you haven't moved your car, you got cars sitting there for a long period of time, we're going to start doing that again, like now. So be aware of that if you're listening to this, that the parking situation in the city is going to start resuming normal operations very shortly. I had is there any questions regarding that?
Not about April, not for me.
Okay.
Jacques, Jill, Jason?
I had
No.
a quick question. If you could tell us give us some sense of the volume of traffic on the streets, and if the reduction in accidents and incidents might be related back in April to reduce volume.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was a lot of reduced volume, but it's coming back. But as far as the actual volume measurements, I think Robert would probably be able to answer that better than me, because we don't really, we're just doing it based on our, we're out there driving around, we see it, but we don't do any scientific or engineering evaluations. That's something probably Robert and his team could address better than me, I'd imagine. Any other questions? And also I was asked, I don't know if I should do this now, but there was an email sent to the city regarding an issue with or a question and a concern regarding a traffic issue in the city, and they asked me to address this. It was from a resident, I believe. I don't know if you want me to read this email and address it now, or this is not the appropriate time.
No, please go ahead. It's just related to Sheriff, and it was said that Sheriff is not there. So please explain what's going on and how we are doing that.
Okay. Would you like me to actually read the email and I can leave the person's name out?
Correct.
Yes, please.
Okay. Question for the Calabasas traffic meeting, LASD. The traffic and racing along the Mulholland Highway corridor between Gelson's Market and Calabasas High School continues to be a problem. The problem appears to be worse on the weekends and when car clubs and motorcycles travel the highway in high numbers. It appears that the LASD does not provide traffic enforcement personnel on the weekends. What, if any, strategy does the LASD Lost Hill Station have this summer to provide targeted traffic enforcement on the weekends to help prevent a tragedy from occurring? Well, I agree that there are issues with the Mulholland corridor and groups coming through there. They use it as a corridor to get to the other canyon areas, the beach, and some of the popular places outside of the city. But unfortunately, yes, they do come through that area on, particularly on the weekends. As far as the LASD does not provide traffic enforcement personnel on the weekends, that's actually not true. We provide traffic personnel according to the contracts that we have with contract cities. So with whatever the contract is that we have with the city of Calabasas is what we provide. I don't normally get into exact staffing numbers. I think some of that may be confidential and I don't get into exact numbers, but suffice to say that we don't have a bunch of cars sitting around doing nothing and not active. We address the issues that we get complaints on with the resources that we have. In fact, for that area there, we have directed some additional resources that were allotted for the operation called Safe Canyons, which is a overtime allotment that the station was given by the Board of Supervisors office. I think it was, the office here, Sheila Kuehl, I think her office. And that is to address issues in the canyons, and Mulholland being one of the areas that we can utilize those resources for. So even though this area is in the city, we have tried to put some of those resources into those areas on weekends because it does flow into that canyon and unincorporated area where the money was designated. So we are using some of that, which isn't costing the city anything, but we are doing that. But the majority of it we do have to utilize in the unincorporated county and canyon areas. But we are doing that. We are using some of that in those areas. The city of Calabasas has recently upped their contract for our motor officer back to where it was before. I think it was cut back a little bit, but now it's going to be going back to where it was before. But the motor officer is primarily there during the week when volumes are the highest and you have the commuter traffic, the school traffic, people going to work, and it's just the busier time. So the city wanted that motor officer there during the weekdays, during the hours when things were busiest. And as far as adjusting, just people's schedules, that's something that we can't just arbitrarily adjust schedules because that you get into labor issues there. You can't really just arbitrarily change somebody's days off, routinely. So we do have issues with that. The personnel that we have assigned on the weekends are doing their best. They have to answer calls. You have 24,000 residents in Calabasas, and we get report calls and, we get other complaints. So we are really doing the best we can to be in those areas, but we are spread thin and we do have calls for service. We have report writing to do, and that takes up time. So we are addressing those issues the best that we can. As far as targeted specific enforcement, we will try to use some of that Safe Canyons money again during the summertime to put some people over there and make some kind of an impact. But the large groups of motorists, motorcycles and stuff that are coming through there, if they're not speeding and they're not doing anything illegal, it is a public roadway and there's not a heck of a lot we can do about stopping them. But if they are violating the law, we will, take enforcement action when seen. Is there any questions?
Robert, who is the lead for the city on contracting for the sheriff's services in terms of hours of labor? Is that you or is that the city manager's office or
City manager's office.
Okay.
The only thing I want to add to Dave's report, I believe in the corridor, CHP gets involved too on the weekend. I have seen California Highway Patrol in that area. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. portion of Mulholland Highway, I seen California Highway Patrol enforcing. Is that correct statement?
Yes, they will, enforce, I think it's what, a short period west of Viewpoint, you start getting into the county area there, and they do enforce that. They're the primary agency for unincorporated county roadways and highways, and they are there. I'm not sure exactly what their staffing levels are, but they are the primary agency. They are there. Whether or not they'll come into the city, probably rarely. They'll come through there. If they see a violation, they'll cite it, but they're not going to really sit in the incorporated city areas and wait for violations. Not generally. But yes, they are in that area.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Robert, did you get a copy of that email, or is this the first you're hearing of it?
No, that email arrived actually today, and it was through city email. So I immediately contacted Dave, told him to be prepared. It wasn't something we could have prepared something. So I believe it's sufficient what we responded, and that should be noted within the minute of the meeting.
Thank you very much. Dave, any other items? Are you ramping up for the fall for the school, a very different condition than we had this year?
Yes, and the city does also have a liaison. We have the community, the SIT team, the community impact team, and the city does have a deputy that represents Calabasas. And I think that in the fall, they're going to be heavily involved with coordinating those efforts, along with me also. But the deputy, I believe it's Deputy DiMatteo, is the SIT team member for Calabasas, and we'll get with him and I'll brief him on all the. I think he's pretty familiar with it, but he was during the COVID time, so it wasn't the same. But I'll brief him on all the issues that arise, and we'll be on it, and we're aware of the particular problems that rise up because of that, and I'm sure they're going to be coming out in full strength in August.
Yeah, so Dave, we have a meeting in July. It might be good if your colleague either listens into the meeting and introduces him or herself to us so that we have our eyes on who will be our liaison related to schools before schools open.
Okay, yes, and it is a male, and in the July meeting, I will advise him to be here for that.
Okay, thank you very much. My fellow commissioners, Jacques, Jason, Jill, anything?
I have nothing.
Okay, very
Thank
good.
you.
So thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. And you look as handsome as ever.
Yeah, I know. I look really good today. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You look amazing too, by the way. Thank you. You do, really, truly.
Enough of that. So the next item is our public comment. Anna, is there anybody from the public on our meeting? So hearing none, we'll move on to our next agenda. We'll talk about our agenda items. We have 3 specific agenda items, and then there will be other items that come up for consideration after that. So the first item is the transportation study guidelines update. And Tom, are you lead on that?
Yes, I am.
Very good. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for preparing such a thorough description of the job ahead of us and you, both what's happening locally, what's happening at the state level. And it was very thorough and provoked a few comments on my part, and there may be others from my fellow commissioners. So please lead us through the presentation, and we'll offer off comments and questions.
Sure. Thank you. All right, Chair and members of the commission, as you remember back in September, I was here to talk about the new CEQA thresholds for using vehicle miles traveled. We had a pretty good discussion, and ultimately the commission supported those. We're looking at taking those to the city council later this year. And as a part of the whole package that's going to be updated through this effort, which includes also updating the general plan, is to create these guidelines so that when development comes in, we can tell their technical staff, hey, this is how you now have to do the review of your traffic impacts. So that the guidelines that I'm going to be talking about are going to be used to talk about both CEQA impacts and roadway operational impacts. As we know, the state law changed, and we're only looking at vehicle miles traveled for the legal CEQA thresholds, but we still have the discretionary approval process that the city can still require development to look at levels of service and safety issues. So our new guidelines are essentially going to have two parts to them. There's going to be the transportation environmental impact analysis, what we're calling the TIA, which is the CEQA environmental clearance, and it's the thresholds that we talked about back in September. And then the other part is going to be the local transportation operational assessment, which is essentially what we've been doing for years in terms of looking at the impacts on our roadways and looking at the site itself and the impact to driveways and those types of things. So it's just expanding the existing effort to include the CEQA new guidelines. So the first part, the TIA, or the environmental impact analysis, what I did was prepared a checklist that's going to help both the planning and engineering staff, when projects come through, be able to kind of do a screening look at, does this need a full analysis, or does it have the presumption that it's going to have a less than significant impact given the city's new guidelines and the guidance from the state. So as we talked about before, it's going to look at project type. So those that have low traffic generation, are locally serving retail, those types of things, community meeting places, those are all things that potentially reduce regional vehicle miles traveled because people can do more activities within the city boundaries and not have to drive outside. The second area is the low VMT areas. We have certain areas of the city that are already generating a relatively low VMT per land use on a resident or worker basis. And that's really based upon the environment that they're in. So the presumption is that if a similar land use goes in, it's going to have a similar vehicle mile traveled production. And therefore, if it's already low, then it's going to be low in the future. And then the transit priority area, unfortunately, at this point, we don't have any quote unquote high quality transit service, which is essentially bus or rail service that runs every 15 minutes or better. So we don't have this at the time. So none of the projects are going to be in a transit priority area. And then if they don't meet any of those, then they would do the full VMT analysis, which would mean that their traffic engineer would have to go talk to SCAG and run the regional model and predict what the VMT for the new project is, and then look at it versus our city adopted thresholds. And then if it actually does have a significant impact, then they'd have to recommend some mitigation measures. The city would then kind of go through and say, yes, these are going to work, or no, those are not going to work. And this is how much credit you get for them until they bring those vehicle mile traveled number below the threshold amount. The second part, the LTA, is again, it's really what we've already been doing. There is a checklist piece on looking at it. If it's a small project that generates the 110 daily trips or less, which is essentially a few homes or a small business or those types of things, we're not going to require them to do a full traffic analysis. We'll still look at the projects as we do with every project as to, the driveways and the on-site circulation and stuff, but it's not going to be we're not going to require that they do a formal study. But if they do, and they're above that initial threshold, or they're in an area that is, that the city deems is an important corridor, or that, regardless of the size, it's going to have an impact, then they would have to do a full traffic study like they do now, looking at trip generation, distribution, How does that impact the intersections in terms of the level of service, the queuing, looking at the site in terms of, where are the driveways, how are they being used, access by bicyclists and pedestrians to get on and off site, to move around on site, and then the on-site circulation and queuing. So if we have, say, a fast food restaurant or a drive-through bank, how is the queuing? Is it going to affect circulation on site? And then the truck access and loading areas, making sure the truck can get on site, get to the loading area and not block other traffic. And then finally, kind of an overall safety analysis, making sure that their driveways and their landscaping and other things aren't going to cause any, site distance or safety issues at the driveway. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and this is relatively new, I've been talking to planning about this, is how do we address sort of this emergency evacuation evaluation? Planning is going to have their own consultant requirements for having evaluation, but a lot of the data that gets prepared from the traffic consultant is going to be valuable information for that evaluation that's being done by a separate consultant. So that whatever data is prepared, and if any special information needs to be prepared, the traffic engineer will be required to provide that also. So that's it. It was pretty quick because it's not, it's nothing really different than what we're doing now. We're just adding the VMT thresholds that we discussed last time, and then adding the new checklist to kind of make it easier for the planners to make decisions about whether they need to do the study or not. With that, I have time to answer any questions.
Any questions from my colleagues on the commission? Doesn't look like any. I have a question, and that is, you have this step 2 in your checklist, which is if a project is within a low VMT generating area. I understand the premise of it. What happens if you have a project that by itself will be a high VMT project, but that it's located in a low VMT area? How does that get through the screening? If you could please elaborate, Tom.
Sure. So for a project to be screened out through that process, it has to be similar in nature to the existing development that's there now. So if it's commercial, but it's a big box commercial, that's not going to be screened out because it's not similar to anything that's in Calabasas now. So if a target wanted to come in, that's a special generator. It's going to generate from a larger area. It's not compatible with what's there now in terms of low VMT. So we would make them do a special study. So it's really making that decision about what is the existing businesses, residences, and development in that area that's generating this low VMT. And if it's similar in nature, then the presumption is made that it's also going to be low.
So that we will have an objective means of determining whether the proposed development is low VMT. So that an applicant couldn't say that it was subjectively decided that it was a high VMT.
Well, it's always going to be somewhat subjective because it's ultimately the public works director's call as to whether it is within the same characteristic as existing or not. We'll probably confer with planning and have them concur with us. But I'm using the checklist now in several agencies, including in Calabasas. The question has come up where a developer is saying, no, this is light industrial. And it's like, no, it's not light industrial. It's a business park. And so you're having that discussion about what are they actually building, and they have, what they show on their paper and what they're proposing has to be true to what they're calling it. They can't argue after the fact and say, no, this is not what we're actually doing, when their application says that they're putting in a business park, and then they try and say for the purposes of the traffic study, oh, it's light industrial, because those look very similar. So in some cases, it's going to be a discussion, but ultimately it's the Public Works Director's decision.
I want to make sure that we, Public Works Department, and that the Planning Department are on solid objective criteria so that an applicant can't claim foul that we miscategorized the intensity of their project relative to VMT.
Okay.
Chair, between Public Work and Planning Department, Community Development Department, there is a clear definition of the development, the type of building, and what it will be. So based on those information, and as Tom mentioned, based on what will be presented to us, those decisions can be made unanimously between myself and Community Development Director, and then
Okay,
no arguments.
thank you. Any questions, or are you looking for just this is simply an information item, Tom, or were you looking for us to advance this to council, or both?
I'm sorry, Chair Volk, it looks like Commissioner Vice Chair Schechter has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see her. Thank you.
No problem at all. I had a curiosity about how some of the thresholds were established, like the 110 trips and some of the square footages. I think one of our other commissioners might have raised that issue last time about exemption from the studies based on square footages. How are those determined? Are they in conform? Are we standing alone as the city, or do they relate to some state guidelines?
Thank you, Commissioner. This is in regards to the project type, which is sort of check one, step one. These are exactly what the state is basically requiring as a baseline is, hey, the 110 trips is a fairly common standard that agencies, including the state and Caltrans, and lots of cities have used for years in terms of whether a traffic study is required. So that's somewhat being carried forward, but that is in the state guidelines. All of those, the land use numbers in there are sort of, hey, if you run backwards trip generation for all these different types of land use, it's approximately that square footage of type of land use. So 110 daily trips is about 9 to 11 residential units, depending on if they're single family or if they're multi-family. So everything comes from that 110.
Thank you.
So
Commissioner Ariano or Commissioner Sperling-Reich?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Nicholas, do you have any questions?
I don't, but it looks like Vice Chair Schechter still has her hand
Oh,
raised.
another question? Jill? All right, she took her hand down. Very good. Thank you very much, Tom.
But to follow up on your question, Chair Volk, we're not looking for any sort of approval or adoption. This is kind of an internal staff use to reflect the standards that are being adopted by council. So it's not going to council. What we're looking for at this point is just comments to make sure that we address any questions or issues that the commission has.
Just a point of suggestion. The city of Los Angeles is adopting a new transportation demand management ordinance. They've developed some technical tools to help applicants sift through the measures that would be appropriate for their projects. So they've developed a tool that allows you to, based on the type of project and the size of the project, to identify the type of measures that would be appropriate and should be included with the project's plan. So you might, if you're looking to have a tool to use yourself or have applicants use to determine what type of TDM measures are appropriate, I'd suggest you contact either planning or transportation in the city of Los Angeles. And if you'd like some contacts there, I'll be glad to help you with that.
Thank you, Chair Volk. I actually have a copy of their draft. I have a couple of friends who work over there in transportation planning.
Very good. I think they've developed some good tools.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Robert, any end note for us on this item?
As Tom mentioned, the idea was just introducing what we are doing. This is gonna be incorporated in our guidelines, and it will be posted so developers, they know what we are expecting. And I think it was good discussion, good introduction to this, and we will have Tom on board to assist us throughout the process. Thank
Very
you.
good, thank you. The next item on our agenda, item number 2, is the Old Town Sidewalk Replacement Project update. Robert, who will be carrying this forward?
I will make the presentation. Let me just share the screen and make it available.
Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Okay. Just to start, a little bit of history. The city adopted the Old Town Calabasas Master Plan and Design Guidelines in 1994. Shortly prior to that guidelines, the city installed the weather polymer decking or sidewalk tracks material with other improvements in the Old Town, such as bollards, electrical receptacles, hitching posts, trash cans, etc., street lights. And since that time, of course, it's all been wearing out, and the condition required a lot of maintenance. And we are now at the point that it's really difficult to maintain, and we are really right there where we need to make it a capital improvement project and not just keep maintaining and fixing it, but replacing the sidewalk. But to talk a little bit more about this project, this is called, although it's called the sidewalk replacement project, but it actually includes more elements than just a simple sidewalk replacement. This slide shows the limits of the project, and it stretches all the way from Park Granada to El Cannon, and actually to the intersection with freeway off-ramp, because the sidewalk continues all the way to that intersection. So we didn't want to just to leave it, cut it short by just the limits of Calabasas, but we just wanted to make sure that we address that issue, because this sidewalk now presents the actually trip hazard. So we really need to look into this and make sure if we're replacing and making it better, the entire area, that we will address the entire area. As I mentioned, it's not just the sidewalk replacement. There is a lot of elements that we're looking at and including it in the project plans for removal and replacement or installation of new elements. And we will keep the team, of course, the Old West and the design that was adopted by Old Town Master Plan and Guidelines. And to add to that, the presentation was made to Historic Preservation Commission earlier this month, together with Planning Division. We made this presentation and we showed these elements with the problem area and elements we're proposing to replace. And there were very few comments that we are included in our comments to the consulting engineer to make sure that's addressed in the project plans. But they were basically in terms of the look, they like the look of the existing fencing. They didn't want it to change the design itself, but the material, of course, can be different. They asked about the bench, what kind of material we're going to use to make sure it's comfortable to sit on. It's not a concrete bench. And also there were questions about the safety elements, especially in the crosswalks in the Old Town. So this one of the problem areas. This is the existing picture. It doesn't show it very well, but we have the Trex material decking that is uneven. Some of them are really coming out, and especially near the trees, and some areas are really bad. The recommended change is to use stamped concrete. So it's a concrete sidewalk, but with a better looking than just a regular concrete sidewalk, just to address the aesthetic element of it. The next change is actually addressing safety more than anything else. And as you can see, the picture of the crosswalks, and they're all in the similar condition right now. They're in bad shape. And replacing those stones is becoming a really difficult task. So it's not only this project will address replacement of the existing material, but we also would like to add the in-pavement flashers, because we know how high the pedestrian traffic there, especially when the farmers market is there and in the evening time. When the visibility is the worst, but we have restaurants in the area, and now with the park and ride facility, which across the street from some restaurants. So those crosswalks are very well used. And of course, just addressing the material, it would be good to add an enhancement such as in-pavement flashers. The next element is the crosswalk ramps. So they're not ADA compliant, together with the incompliant width of the sidewalk itself. The ramps are not per the latest standard, so they will be redesigned and replaced as part of this project. Now I just would like to show the plans. They are at 90%. And the consulting engineer are working with us to include all the elements. And we are not replacing the existing concrete sidewalk right here in front of the office building near Park Granada, but we're starting replacement right after the driveway and across the street where the Anza Hotel is. But we are addressing street lights and trash receptacle and street furniture, starting from all the way from intersection with Park Granada. This slide shows the next section of Calabasas Road, and as you can see, it includes all elements. It includes the replacement of the sidewalk, new crosswalks, and we will replace the trees also. The trees will be replaced with some design elements that will be added. This is pretty much the limits of the project, goes all the way to end of Calabasas Road and wraps around, and we're addressing this segment on El Canyon Avenue as well. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Tatiana. Give us a little bit of sense of schedule and budget, and then we'll jump in with questions.
The proposed construction start date is fall of this year. We're planning to have all our plans and bid package available soon. We'll advertise. Construction will be for 3-4 months. The project is funded to ad valorem funds, and the projected budget is about $2.5 million.
Couple of things I would like to add, Mr. Chair, Tatiana. Number one, we would like to take this project to council prior to advertisement. So make sure they're happy with design elements. So that's why this project was presented to Historical Commission, to Traffic Commission, and I believe in August, Tatiana will help me to present this to council. That's one. Number two, I just want to make sure be clear, the ADA ramps were in compliance at the time of construction. So I don't want attorneys get a hold of this, that we have ADAs ramp that they were in compliance. Sometimes when you build a project, so many years goes by, as Tatiana mentioned, we need to update or upgrade all the access ramps. And lastly, this project could have been done by Measure M, but since we have ad valorem fund, that's a part of updating or upgrading the landscape and design elements, this project was qualified. And about 2 years ago, actually, when Tony Corrales was city manager, this project was put together. We are finally getting there, and the consultant and Tatiana working very hard to help me out with this. As the commission know, we are shorthanded in my department. Unfortunately, Ben Chan is not back yet to help us out, and we have no assistant level staff. So Tatiana, myself, and Alba are carrying all the duties. But this will be presented to City Council in August and advertised immediately, and then hopefully in fall, we will break the ground.
Okay, very good.
But Tatiana, could you repeat the budget? Because you broke up when you said the amount and I didn't catch it.
2.5 million.
Thank you.
Jason, any questions?
No, I mean, the only thing I would say is it's nice that the flashing, I see you mentioned it if I'm not mistaken, but there's also, it's in the packet as well, the in-pavement flashing crosswalks, which I think will be very useful. Just out of curiosity, why the removal of the trees? Some of those trees, it seems like have been there for decades. Is there a reason to remove the trees for this project?
We are working closely with our landscape division manager, and she is very good in selecting the trees that are appropriate for this location. We don't want this sidewalk to buckle, you know, in the next few years. And some of the trees are since we're addressing all the sidewalk, and some of the tree wells are also in bad shape. So since we will be touching all of that, there is a chance, first of all, that there is no guarantee that we won't damage this tree root system, and it's much better and much easier to have to create a new clean look and new project. And also address, because we will be removing some trees near key locations such as crosswalks and some driveways, because there's line of sight issues in some of them. So we will be addressing multiple issues with this project.
Jill, any questions from you?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to commend you on a really great project, improvements in safety for the community, while keeping very true to the intent of the design of the street. So it looks great to me. One thing, curiously, I don't think that we talked about was actually the impact on traffic through that area. And I'm curious about, is the work going to be done during the day, at night? How are there plans to juggle that?
Well, historically, when we do work in this segment of Calabasas Road, we do a lot of work at night, because this is a major arterial near the freeway ramps, and some of work will be done in the daytime, of course. We can do everything at night, and we will work carefully on the traffic control plan to make sure the street closures will not interrupt the traffic to the point that, to create the big detours or major inconvenience. So there will be, and sometimes we do close segments in one direction, and creating detour, then the center median there helps. So we will be definitely addressing that.
I have a couple of questions and points of clarification. Is any of this project the improvements in the city of Los Angeles?
Yes, some of them are.
And are we asking our neighbors to help contribute to this project?
I can answer that question, Tatiana, if you don't mind. At the time we originally built this project, we did talk to the city of LA, and they allow us, or sort of gave us easement all the way to on-ramp, off-ramp. They really did not have any interest to do any improvement or match our old town. So we will continue under the same encroachment permit to build the sidewalks and correct them. We did notify them that we are doing the improvement. I don't think they're gonna contribute. They did not have any interest because if you recall, even El Cannon belonged to City of LA. So
Yeah.
City of Calabasas limit ends at the curb and gutter of El Cannon and the sidewalk. And also Sagebrush Cantina is in City of LA. All the benefit and tax goes to City of LA, and the sidewalk and headache and hassle is ours, but we don't mind. We are proud of our Old Town Calabasas. We will do that. And lastly, one of the biggest challenge for me and Tatiana will be dealing with businesses when you build the sidewalks. Some of these sidewalks enter in the sort of business private right-of-way that we need to coordinate. So the way Tatiana and her team and consultant are preparing the specification will address that, and it will be a staff or an inspector coordinating all the right-of-way issues, traffic issues, and as Tatiana mentioned, we will schedule majority of the work that will impede traffic or businesses will be done at nighttime because there is not many residents that will be impacted by this.
Couple other points of clarification. The crosswalks appear to be a different texture than the roadway, which they should be. What are you thinking of using there? Stamped concrete as well? Painted asphalt? Or tell us a little bit more about what the design of that will look like.
We're proposing to install a cobblestones crosswalk. We'll keep the similar, visually similar to what out there now in terms of a different colors, but it will be a different material. But
a little bit longer lasting, longer lasting, easier to maintain and to replace when the cobblestones go bad, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's going to be
that's the
better
goal.
installation.
Okay. And another just a point to see if you've thought about putting up any type of pedestrian crossing signs for motorists approaching the crosswalks, either following MUTCD standards or possible flashing diamond-shaped ped crossing signage.
We currently have pedestrian signage and even advanced pedestrian signage, but with the flashing crosswalks, we'll definitely follow MUTCD standards, and the signing and striping plan will be part of the packet. And
the flashers will be actuated by PEDs with a hand button, or is it a non-actuated or non-pedestrian actuated, but when a pedestrian enters the crosswalk?
It will be with a push button. It will be activated with a push button.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Hearing and seeing none, thank you very much, Tatiana. And again, are you looking for our this was an information item only, or what is the action required of us?
It is an information item. However, I encourage you, if you have any comments, because we are not, design is not 100% complete. If you have any comments, and we will be able to take a note of it and make sure we address all of them.
Yeah, the one area I didn't see the level of detail is that are any of the surfaces that we're going to be reconstructing have a permeable characteristic to it to let water runoff soak into the earth?
No, we do not use any permeable pavement in this project. We do have this segment of Calabasas Road on the list of a Green Street project, and so that will be a future. We can address it through the medians and the landscape islands.
And there's no need environmentally from water discharge and capture to have permeable surface in the sidewalks, in the sidewalk areas?
The sidewalk is right now with the plant trees, you know, and the tree wells. We are proposing there to install some permeable material around the trees. So that will be one element that will be included.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Tatiana.
Thank
Our
you.
next item is the transit service update, and Holly, please take us there.
Good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen here. Okay, here it is. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, commissioners. I'm here with another transit update. I have 3 points to bring to your attention today. Well, first, good news. Our services are coming back in August. Lines 1 through 5 are coming back in August, and the trolley. We're expecting to start line 1 a little ahead of the time in the early August, and then lines 2 through 5 will be coming back close to the time the schools go back to the in-person sessions. Dial-A Ride remains uninterrupted. It's been running through the pandemic. Everyone is happy with it. We are happy with it. So that remains uninterrupted. Request for proposals. Our transit contract is about to come to an end at the end of this month on June 30th. Current transit providers, MV, we published a request for proposals, and we received only 2 proposals from MV and from Ventura Transit Systems. And Ventura Transit was also a proposer during the last RFP. They showed interest this time as well. So we reviewed both proposals. They were both competitive. They both addressed all the issues and all the requirements that the city put out. We thought that they're competitive. They were very, it was quality proposal basically. And the only thing that basically helped us determine who would we want to work with, or who is the prospective service provider, was the cost of the contract. Using the fee schedule that the proposals provided, let me move through this table. So when we saw the fee schedule, we determined we will need about 6,000 hours of service each year. That's an estimate, and it includes a factor of safety, just in case there are other trips that the city requests. So it includes additional hours that are not currently in place, but we are foreseeing that the city will request the service provider to provide service for. So we use the fee schedule, and we determined that Ventura Transit's free proposal results in a lower contract cost. If you notice here, in year 21-22, which will begin which will begin in July, and it will end June 30th, 2022. We are expecting Ventura's contract to run at $291,000 and MV's contract to run at $489,000. Moving forward, we basically requested the companies to provide us a fee schedule for 5 years. The contract will be for 3 years, but the fee schedule was for 5 years, giving an option of 2 one-year terms in case the city would like to extend the contract. So during these 5 years, we compared the cost, and we noticed that Ventura Transit is proposing a lower cost. Their fee schedule will give us a lower contract cost, and we determined that they would be a suitable service provider for us. Of course, this request will be submitted to the city council. It will depend on their approval because it's a larger contract. It requires their approval. It will be presented to them tomorrow on June 23rd. And upon their approval, Ventura Transit will be our prospective contractor for the next 3 years. well, 3 years with an option of 2 one-year terms. That being said, Dial-A-Ride contract is also coming to an end on June 30th, 2021. We spoke to the current service provider. They have been working very, they've been providing quality service to our residents. Our senior residents are very happy with them. They're very comfortable with them. They are on time, they're professional, they're helpful, very responsive. So given that we have a quality service in place, we approached the service provider and asked them if they would like to continue operations. However, our condition was that they have to remain within the same fee schedule, which is basically they add $1 every year to their hourly cost. They were happy to provide that. They're local company, so they're comfortable here. They are happy to provide that. They love working with our senior residents. So for the next 3 years, we are proposing to the city council to approve an agreement with them. The contract will expire in June 2024, and they also have 3 one-year extensions, but the option remains with the city whether to extend the contract every year or not. Depending on the council's approval, Ideal General Service will continue providing our Dial-A-Ride services. If you recall from our last meeting, I mentioned that it was expected that the pandemic would have an adverse effect on our funding sources. Our transit funding sources are Proposition A and C, Measure R and Measure M local return. And at the beginning of the pandemic, there were major concerns that we would have major cuts and we had to make a decision whether to continue services or not. Luckily, none of that happened. The decrease in the allocations were very minimum. Metro provided us with the allocation, and it looks like we will be having the following allocation for fiscal year 22. Here, if you notice under expenditure, I don't have any expenditure this year because we haven't started the year yet, but these will be our allocation. I have provided historical data for your information just to compare the numbers and notice that the decrease was very minimum, and we are comfortable that we will be able to continue providing the same services for the next year. With that being said, this is an informational item, however, available for any questions you may have.
I have a question with regards to the MV versus Ventura proposal. I'm no expert, but it looked like quite a disparity in the pricing. And but it was apples to apples. The service was no different, just that they came in that much lower.
The service is the same. The reason for the difference in pricing is that MV is proposing to have a fixed rate as well as a variable rate every month. Their fixed rate was about, I don't want to misspeak, but I think it was between $14,000 to $18,000 a month. And then on top of that, whatever hourly service they would provide, they would charge hourly cost for that. So the bill ended up being much higher than what Ventura Transit is proposing. Ventura is only charging hourly cost. They don't have a fixed cost every month.
Well, Holly, a couple of things I would like.
Thank you.
MV is a very large company.
Mm-hmm.
Find out the Ventura Transit is a smaller company, and actually the owners are Calabasas resident. One of their presentation during interview mentioned that they're local. They really want to serve our community. They want to be a part of community. They've been trying very hard to be a part of community. I'm not sure if Commissioner Walk was a part of the committee to interview, but they definitely came across that they can give us better service. They're local, their drivers are local. We have a difficult program. Our public transit really works around the school, and after 9 a.m. we have no services on some line. Then we get back to the program at noon or at 2 o'clock. So you have a lot of gap. And they found this solution that they can work with us on that issue. And MV tried, and we're not saying they weren't trying to work with us, but being a larger company, they decided to let go of their Thousand Oaks office, and they were going to give us a Moore Park, if I'm not mistaken.
No, further out. It wasn't close to Ventura, Santa Paula, I believe.
Santa Paula office. And that was another minor concern for us. So after reviewed the contract, and also we had city attorney review both of these contracts and proposals, and he was fully engaged in the contract proposal. And I believe we had 3 people interview both company, and everyone came back with the idea that Ventura can give us better service.
Thank you.
Jack, any further clarifications or questions?
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Jill?
Yeah, thank you so much, Holly. This is outside of the scope of your presentation, but maybe you or Mr. Yalda could answer this question. Since we've had a long absence from transit services provided, and they're going to start back up in August, some members of the public might be curious about masking requirements while riding, while utilizing those transit services. Do you know what the status will be?
I can help Holly on this one. As you know, CDC rulings are changing, even state. And City of Calabasas is taking different position. At the time of services, if the mask is required, city has plenty of masks, and we will equip each bus with the masks, and the driver can hand out to the passengers that they do not have the mask. Right now, our dial-a-ride does that. We provide him with the mask and cleanser in case the passenger shows up with no mask. We politely ask them that our policy is to wear a mask. At this time, my belief is we will require masking because our buses are shuttles, they're small, and the capacity is limited. So the mask will be a part of requirement, and we will advertise it. We're gonna be working very close with all the schools during their open house. We will send all the requirements. So at this time, we have not worked the details, and as soon as we received approval from council, which, believe it or not, we're gonna be presenting these items to city council tomorrow night. And after that, we have enough time to sit down with the service provider, with the subcommittee, with our own city's health department or administrative offices to see what will be the ruling for Calabasas for public passenger ridership and all that stuff. And I'm sure we can report back to this commission prior to start of the services.
Any other questions? Jason? Holly, tell me a little bit about Ventura Transit's track record in running similar services.
They have been doing the dial-a-ride service for Ventura. Unfortunately, I don't have their information on hand. However, I contacted all of their references. They have flying record. Everyone is happy with them. They are, what I get is that they're very responsive. They're cooperative. Their staff are professionals. They are local. As Robert mentioned, their drivers are local. So we will have local drivers who will show up on time, present service on time. And also all their references mentioned that they're reliable, basically. Their invoicing is on point. I didn't get one complaint, or I didn't even get an unsure response. Everyone was happy with them. So that helped us make a decision in the process.
Do they operate fixed route service like we're going to have them do? It's very different than dial-a-ride.
Dial-a-ride, well, other cities' dial-a-ride is not similar to what we have. It is a hybrid between dial-a-ride and fixed service. So it's more of a smaller loop that goes around the city in a smaller amount of time. And I mean, it's a hybrid. It's slightly of a different system, and they've been doing that. So they know that there's a schedule. They have to show up to the stops on time. They have to meet the demand, interact with the riders, collect the fare. So they've been doing that. Their drivers are familiar with that.
Because if you think about it, a dial-a-ride is a very closed system. The demographics, age-wise, are very different than our transit service. I'll be very happy when I see that they perform to this service, which it appears they don't do now. They don't operate a fixed route service. Is that correct?
I don't,
In my understanding, I believe
do Malibu.
they mentioned that they had a couple of fixed routes. We can verify that, but we are
Well, that's verified.
confident that they're qualified to operate our public transit program.
And are they going to maintain the vehicles? Does MV maintain the vehicles now?
They are maintaining. So maintenance of the vehicles was part of the RFP. They will be maintaining them.
And do they have what's their track record in doing that? Do they maintain the vehicles that they operate for
Yeah.
their existing clients?
They do, yes.
And are they vehicles similar to ours, or are they different? Or are they different?
They are smaller than our vehicles, but they said that they have no issue maintaining these vehicles. They have the mechanics and the shop required to do this job.
Because the cutaway type of vehicles we have are often very different than dial-a-ride vehicles.
Correct.
And they take more abuse.
And not many mechanics are able to work on our vehicles, but we actually, that was one of the points that we discussed with them. They said that they're comfortable, they'll be able to maintain and make sure, and they do. Well, we do have we do have to pass audits with Metro every year as far as the maintenance of the vehicle goes. So they said that they are comfortable working with Metro, providing all the data that Metro requires them to do, and that was part of the questioning. They said that they're comfortable to do that.
I didn't read the RFP, but what are the provisions for rescuing vehicles that go out of service in the middle of their operations?
They said they have drivers on call within 15 minutes. They'll be able to get to our yard. All of the shuttles will be stored out at our yard at the end of the Calabasas road. So they'll be able to get a driver out to the yard, pick up a car and go back and pick up the slack, basically restart the line where it was left off.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Following on Chair Volk's comments and for my edification, how are the vehicles checked? Like, is there a state, what's the word I'm looking for? Are they checked by third party to make sure that they're being maintained correctly? How do we know that what they're doing maintenance-wise is to standard, to whatever the state standard is or city standard? I'm just curious.
So we have federally funded vehicles and locally funded vehicles. The federally funded vehicles, which the last 4 vehicles we purchased are federally funded, they have to go through an extensive review process every year. They have to they have to be maintained every other week, every month, every year. There's a list, an extensive list, a checklist that the vehicles go through. Also, we do CHP maintenance, a CHP inspection, and then we have to submit smog check for all the vehicles. So there is checks and balances all along the way to make sure the cars are up to standard, running smoothly, and up to the code, up to the current code.
Great, thank
Ali,
you.
you're right. I think all the public transit service, they have to go through CHP and they go to their yard and they do double check all the required, mainly brake, tire, the wear and tear on the tire, and the brake lights, and quality of the shuttles. Once a year, CHP certifies our public transit to be in operation.
Thank you very much, Holly. Robert, appreciate it. You're moving on this quickly. And your expected start date for service is August 1?
Well, August 1 is a weekend. I can give you a date. So we're expecting to begin on August 2nd for line 1. That is absolutely tentative. We will be posting the schedule on the website because it's a new company. As soon as the contract is approved, we are going to inspect our cars, make sure the catalytic converter is reinstalled because they were all stolen. We will make sure there are batteries, if there are any repairs needed to be done. And we will make sure the cars are ready by August 2nd, but the final updated schedule will be posted on the website. If we have a meeting in July, I'm pretty sure we can get back to this commission and let you know.
Thank you. Since these will be all new drivers, correct?
All new drivers.
So they will take some time to learn the routes, and we want to make sure that when they go out and are picking up and delivering passengers, that they've been quality checked for their adherence to obviously safety, but also to running the routes correctly. And that they've had chance to practice, basically.
Yes, they will be trained. So July is the month they will be trained on the lines, and they're absolutely new contractor. We will be monitoring them. We will do random inspection on their routes. All of the drivers are background checked. They are. We made sure Ventura knows that our riders are mainly younger kids. There are school children, and we want to make sure that the drivers are reliable and it is safe for our residents to ride the shuttle. So we will go through all that in July. Make sure that everything is up and ready for services to resume in August.
Ollie, I believe Commissioner Sperling has a question. He has his hand raised.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I would ask the question by asking the question of Chairman Volk, because one of you're asking some very pointed questions, which seem very appropriate. Is one of the reasons you're doing that because there's such a big price differential between MV and Ventura?
No, it's not so much the price differential. It's I'm a firm believer in knowing that a vendor has done the job you're asking of them before. And there's lots of nuances in the field of transit. So there's a pretty big difference between dial-a-ride and fixed route. If I was going to hire somebody when I hired somebody to do remodeling in my house, I made sure they did that kind of job before. I mean, if they had done something that was much easier, then I would be a little bit skeptical of what their pricing was, or even their ability to deliver the project on schedule. So I'm asking the questions to kind of go on record about that. I'm trusting that staff has done their due diligence, but this will be something that my eyes will be on. That if you haven't done it before, sometimes you don't know what you're getting into.
Well, using your analogy of home renovation, if you received 2 bids and one of them was, I don't want to say, I don't know whether it's half or, $200,000 less, you might ask yourself the question, okay, why is it so much less? And that's the question.
I could go on at length about remodeling I did in my house and actually how it turned out well. And I didn't hire the least expensive contractor, but the way that this contractor approached the job gave me confidence that whatever pricing they were going to use was based upon a realistic understanding of the job ahead of them.
Well, then I guess I would ask staff whether that is, whether, as Chairman Volk said, the price being offered is realistic.
I can answer some of those questions. Number one, MV is a huge company. So their overhead was, as Holly mentioned, about 14,000 to 18,000 fixed a month. We just multiply that by 12, well, that's a different range. Otherwise, their hourly rate was almost the same. The difference was only about 5%. If you look at the cost analysis, typically, if you reduce the overhead and cost of too many management and a contract writing versus the owner being our own resident, the drivers are local, their cost was sort of calculated based on that. And this same company did Cities Dial-A-Ride about 20 years ago. They do have a fixed route program that they call it like a Dial-A-Ride, but they do have mid-size shuttle, they operate fixed routes. Our transit program is not as complicated as it looks like. It's just by coincidence goes by the schools. So we call it Route 1 to Route 5, but it's really Bay Laurel route, it's Chaparral routes. And this resident mentioned that they had their own children in the community. They're familiar what they need to do. And Route 1 links to our major routes with Metro and LA DOT, and it's pretty fixed. The entire city is 12 square miles. We will make sure they train their driver, and also something else that I'm not 100% sure, some of the drivers that they work with MV and they were supervisor, they have shown interest to cross and work with this company. That's not something I can dictate or city can dictate, but we definitely gonna put this two party in touch. And if that works out, that will be to our advantage because it's gonna be the same people that they have driven the buses that they belong to city for MV, they're gonna drive the same buses for this new company. I hope I answered some of the specific question and concerns.
Keep your eyes on the job. I'm just speaking from when you're bringing on a new contractor with a complicated operating system. I think it's you have to be very vigilant about the transition and the initial operation.
Agree. First of all, for a year, we didn't have any operation. Number two, really, if you recall, the last service provider had complication too. So it wasn't running as smooth as that we are thinking. So every day we had to tweak, upgrade, work on that one. Number three, we're gonna make sure we cross-train this new company. And in my belief, when there's a new company's new energy, they will try their best, and being local residents, they show a lot of pride of workmanship that they want to work in the community. And that was one of the key issues that I sort of was sold that they are capable of helping us out. I know exactly where they live. They're very close to you, Commissioner Walk. I can have you pay a visit to them if they fail.
Although all of my fellow commissioners will come with me on the posse, raise your hand.
Wow.
Thank you very much,
I'll
Robert.
go with
We all
you.
look forward to a exemplary service in the year to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly.
Absolutely.
So the next item is our division report. I know we're running a little behind, but I think the content of our meeting is well worth it. So Tom, are you going to lead the division report, or is it Robert?
It's Tatiana.
Tatiana, okay.
You and improve head of this division. So hopefully that will work out, and we're gonna make that official sooner than later. Tatiana, it's all.
I'll try to be short. Our report consists of updates on a couple of projects we have in the city. Rondell Smart Park project, we are nearing the completion. We're not done yet, but we're nearing a completion. This picture shows the soil nail retaining wall and a V-ditch, and actually the area behind the V-ditch, which for the fire turnaround is also completed already, and it looks actually much better and much more complete than on this picture. This picture is a little bit older. EVgo already installed their charging stations. They're working on them right now. We're waiting for the final inspection by Building and Safety, and then we will have Edison involved in their inspection, and hopefully we can energize the site soon. But for that, we still need to complete our electrical work for our parking lot. not the EVgo part, but the electrical switchgear is installed. The electrical subcontractor is working on the few items they need to complete before we can call for a final inspection, but we're getting there. The contractor installed striping already. We have all the parking stalls striped, including the EV charging station striping per the requirements. And signage is installed. I believe for EV charger, EVgo is providing the signage, so the posts are installed. We install also signed already for the trailhead, some of them, most of them already installed. That's actually all I can present at this point for a park and ride. As soon as we have an electrical item complete and we know the date when the site will be energized, we'll schedule landscaping and irrigation work. And that's it. That'll be the finish line. Mulholland Highway Gap Closure Project.
Oh, one question. Is there a
Oh,
time
sure.
limit? Is there a time limit for vehicles to be parked there?
No, it's a parking lot.
So you can park there overnight?
It's the usual, it's the typical rules, 72 hours you can park, but you can park, but the idea is to have some parking available near the trailhead, some parking available near the transit station, and of course, for the chargers.
If there are any restrictions or terms of use of those spaces, there should be a sign posted with that information. I'm having a knee-jerk reaction about it being in an area there aren't a lot of eyes on the area directly, and I'm concerned about vehicles, the vehicles parking there and using it as a place to park and, hate to say it, live. Who will enforce the 72-hour rule? The sheriff's department?
That's similar to our park and ride that we have in Old Town Calabasas, so it'll be similar. We have
Secural company will be
Secural,
monitored.
and we have our code enforcement.
So are there any terms of use for parking there that should be posted? So motorists can know whether they're able to park there for the purpose that they're intending.
We will look into
To
it.
Old Town Park and Ride, we will post. And we will post the area that we prefer public transit user. Certain area will be posted for the trailhead users. And also it will be clear posting that is a 72-hour park.
Because I know when I park at a facility or a surface lot that's near a trailhead, and let's say it's maintained by the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy or the state, there are terms of use for what's allowed there.
Right, we'll do similar thing here to like an Old Town Park and Ride. And also we will have, after monitoring program, security cameras installed. And also remember, the hotel is there, and it's to hotel advantage that this park and ride be utilized properly, not to be abused by people that they have surplus cars.
Yeah, I don't want it to become a source of concern for our residents about unwarranted, unallowed parking.
Agree, and we will have an eye on it.
Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Now to a new project, Mulholland Highway Gap Closure Project. Just a quick overview. This is where the project is located. Basically it's Mulholland Highway and Old Topanga Road and the intersection of Mulholland and Old Topanga. And the project will install a pedestrian facility to connect the existing sidewalk on Mulholland in front of the school to the back exit on Old Topanga. The construction start date is actually next week. A projected completion is February 2022. The project specifications clearly state what work hours are supposed to be utilized working on this project, considering this is this is the school area. And they have to work with the school to know what the hours when school is in session, when it's not, when school is out. Work on Saturday is okay, will be permitted. Of course, depending, we will work with the school and schedule, and if they have any kind of events or something, we will accommodate. We are working with the contractor on the traffic control. There is a travel lane and sidewalk will be provided, no sidewalk closure, and one travel lane in each direction will be provided on both Old Topanga and Mulholland Highway during the construction. We already know the school schedule. It starts on August 18th, first day of school. And also in the specifications, we told the contractor that the first week of school, there will be limited work. This just to show you an example. This is the traffic control plan that's submitted. So as you can see that traffic will be shifted. So the contractor can have the work area where they need to excavate and build a retaining wall. So the traffic will be shifted, but one travel lane in each direction will be provided. Similar on Old Topanga. Traffic will be shifted. So contractor can utilize all this room in front of the slope to park their equipment and do the excavation work and everything. But again, there will be no flagman or stopping one lane. There will be a traffic flow, one lane in each direction. We're working with the school, and the school district granted temporary construction easement on Old Topanga for construction of the retaining wall. That documentation is already finalized. So we're working now with the contractor to make sure they mobilize accordingly. That's it for this project. If you have any questions about this project, I can answer them now.
I'm trying to see anybody have their hand raised. Don't think so. So Tatiana, talk to us a little bit about on Mulholland, the construction of a sidewalk from the high school down to Old Topanga. Is that part of the project?
Yes, it will connect the existing sidewalk from the school driveways will be actually also addressed. The high school driveways, and this is what contractor is trying to schedule right now to make sure it's done. It's first on their list to do before the school starts. But yes, sidewalk will go all the way from the existing, all the way along Mulholland, around the corner at the intersection, and will continue in Old Topanga.
Okay, very good. Because there's a significant retaining wall that needs to be built there.
There is a retaining wall here, but we did work with the engineering consultant, and we did improve the original idea were higher and longer wall here along Mulholland. We were able to work out some improvements in terms of the design. So this wall's been reduced a little bit. And on Old Topanga, you can probably see it better from this. There's two retaining walls here.
Yeah, it's going to be step up to make it look more visually soft, something similar to we have across from the Gilson.
Good.
So Tatiana has done a great job. They instructed contractor immediately during summertime while high school is off to handle most of the major work that can impede traffic. So they have only about 6 to 8 weeks to do a lot of major work. And the contractor, Ramses, again, is very familiar with the city. They know the complication, and they've been cooperating with our team to get the project done as soon as possible without interrupting the traffic flow of the school.
So that starts next week.
Yes.
We'll start next week.
Okay, very
Well,
good. Thank you.
actually already started. They had a lot of meetings, a lot of traffic control plan, a lot of planning has been done and approved. So physical work, yes, it's starting next week.
And it's actually a smooth transition because it's the same contractor and the same team that work on the Rondell project,
Very good. Thank you.
just moving to a different location.
Okay, so, any other questions about the division report? Hearing none, let's move on to the next item.
Request,
Okay,
quick slide.
okay,
This is the update from our last meeting. That's how many citizen requests we had submitted through our Connect Calabasas system. And majority of them, the biggest number, 10, were on the street maintenance. And the rest is like our usual numbers. But yeah, we have 41 requests, which is kind of a high number. But we're addressing them on time. And the system is available to look what the average response time is, but everything's being addressed. Everybody is working diligently to address any complaints, questions, and issues.
so Tatiana, are you going to take future agenda items? Is that your topic as well?
Sure.
Please.
As Robert mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, we have the tentatively meeting scheduled in July next month. And the proposed agenda items are neighborhood traffic calming guidelines and general plan traffic circulation element that's actually related to SB 743 and EMT
Very good.
element.
My fellow commissioners, any other topics that you would like to see taken up? I see Jason and then Jill.
I just wanted to, I don't know whether it's a topic or how we deal with this, but during the past 15 months, especially at the outset of the pandemic, people began walking in the streets to stay away from people. So all the gyms were closed, the tennis and swim center was closed, and around where I live, around the Park Sienna Loop, people were walking, they were using it for exercise, which is totally fine, but they were also walking in the streets. Slowly, it started to seep out beyond Park Sienna onto Park Capri, Park Renata, and now, now that there are a lot more cars, there are people just walking in the middle of the street, kind of not really even paying attention, at least in the Classic area and in some of the Mulwood areas, I've noticed it as well. I don't know how we address that. I don't know how that kind of thing gets addressed.
We can definitely advertise and it's public education. Let us look into see what other methods we can educate public. We can look at other cities have the same experience like we have. And I agree with you. I do walk my dog right by your house. I know
Yes.
people go around and go in the street and sometimes there's a blind curb. I have seen it, people cross the street or even walk zigzag into the street. So it more becomes public education that pandemic is over. People are driving faster now. The streets are more crowded. So I think that's a great topic and good concern that you have. It's been one of my concerns. We will try to start educating public and maybe even do some additional temporary posting for pedestrian safety. That's a great concern and question that you have. Give us a chance. I'm shorthanded on staff, but I'll be more than happy to have maybe Holly and Tatiana and myself to research and see if other cities have done something that is useful. Maybe in July, bring it back to the commission, brainstorming with the commission and start implementing some educational or quality enforcement.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Jill?
Can you restate the proposed date for our July meeting?
27th.
Okay, thank you.
On Tatiana, Robert, on the first item for future agenda, neighborhood traffic calming guidelines. I'd like us to do a focused analysis and resolution of pedestrian vehicle conflicts in the area on Park Sienna between Park Serena and Park Monaco. I think Jacques would be had mentioned that to me as well. It's an area where maybe fits in with what Jason was saying, that people, many of our community who are able to, were walking around the lake, and that the area along Park Sienna where vehicles park and then enter the lake from what you might call the backside or the front side, depending on how you're looking at it. You got a lot of pedestrians crossing the street, gathering in the street, and that goes on. That went on well before the pandemic. People were not very adherent to using the street plateau or the crosswalk there, the raised crosswalk. So I'd like us to look at that area with a special focus. To identify conditions, and two, to present solutions. Solutions might mean a flashing pedestrian crosswalk sign, and it's something that occurs not just at nighttime, but even during the middle of the day when the sun is shining brightly. So when you take up that topic, I'd like that to make sure we focus on that particular area of the city.
Will do.
Made a note.
Jacques, anything else? You were my bird on the shoulder when I'm bringing this up.
You said it perfectly. Thank you. I think we do have to pay some special attention in that area. Speeding cars, people walking in the street, not using the crosswalk, everything you just said.
With
I'm in
children,
agreement.
in particular, with children.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
thank you
good.
very much. I think that brings us to the end of our agenda.
You did good.
16 minutes late.
I'll give you a break for that one. It's
Thank
okay.
you.
You did good.
Thank you. So Anna, will you poll the commissioners to find out whether we will have a quorum on the 27th?
I will.
Okay, very good. Jason, thanks for indicating and Jill as well. Jacques, can you be there?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Let's see if those who are not with us tonight can attend. Thank you. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All those approving, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and hasta la vista, baby.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night, everyone.
you
Thank
all.
you. Good night.
Thank you.